Hey everybody, Collin here to recap Week 10 and to look at Week 11 in college football. So for Week 10 this week, we actually had our first losing week of the year. We ended up going 2-4, which was a loss with the OSU minus 14.5 versus Nebraska. We lost the Baylor minus 6.5 versus TCU. We lost the Liberty versus Ole Miss over 68. And then our long shot, it was the Navy Moneyline versus Notre Dame. The two that we ended up winning was Kansas State minus 24 versus Kansas, and then the Tulsa first half plus 13.5 versus Cincinnati. So out of this entire college football season, this is the first losing week that we had. We ended up down 1.14 units. But that all being said, this week did a little bit more research, went back to the basics. Didn't overextend myself on just picking games for the sake of picking games. So for this week, I think we have some pretty good ones here and hopefully some good backing to go up against it too. So for my Week 11 picks, starting out with Oklahoma versus Baylor over 62.5. That's a minus 110 that I could find on OddsJam. And the reason for this is that both teams put up points in bunches over the last three games. Oklahoma has put up 46.3 points per game and Baylor's put up 32.3. And both on defense allow more than 25 points per game over that same period. So if you look at the trends, they're 6-3 on the over. Both are, and 3 out of the last 4, as well as to quality opponents. So Texas Tech, TCU, Texas, and BYU sometimes shared in between both of them as well. And the big takeaway here is that neither's great on defense, and they allow 430 yards per game over their last 3. So I think with these strong offensive teams, they're both going to feast on each other. I think it's going to be high scoring. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So make sure you tune into that one. And I put 2 units on that one myself. Next one, I like the Michigan Moneyline versus Penn State. I see that as minus 108 on OddsJam. Michigan looks like the better team on paper here. They average 11 more points per game than Penn State and only allow 16 points per game. I think Penn State's a little bit better than that by about half a point on average. But you can't deny Michigan's defense. Outside of the Michigan State game, they're ranking in the top 10 in yards, points per game, points per play, and passing yards per game. They're going to be going against the Penn State team that hasn't been able to close out meaningful games either. When you look at the Ohio State and Iowa games, they've had the opportunity, they've had the opponents on the ropes. However, they weren't able to really close it out. So I think it's going to be very similar to this. The reason I went with the money line is that at this point in time, it was a pick 'em. So just going with that, just a little bit cleaner. And then I think the X factor is that Michigan controls their own destiny, and they know that, to get to the conference championship game in Indianapolis for the first time ever. And their team looks like they're really pushing for that. If they can leave the past loss to Michigan State in the past and focus on the future, they have to win out. They have to win out in order to get to the conference championship game. And I think they know that, and that's a tough place to be in. So I think looking forward, though, I think this one will be a hard-fought game, but I think it's one that Michigan will pull away with pretty soundly. Next one I have is Iowa versus Minnesota under 37. That's a minus 112 as I was looking through OddsJam today. This is going to be a slow-burning game. Both teams run the ball a lot and take up a lot of clock. Minnesota's 5th in the nation with time of possession, 9th in the nation in rushing attempts. They have 46 on average per game. Iowa's 33rd with time of possession and number 66 in the nation with 37 rush attempts per game. Also to keep in mind that defenses are both top 10 in rush defense, allowing 103 and 99 yards per game respectively. So even though both teams like to run, I don't think it's going to be super successful. And on top of that, they don't allow many points. Iowa's number 4 in the nation with 15.7 points per game, and Iowa's 14th in the nation with 18 points per game. Looking at the over-under analysis, Iowa's 2-7 with the last 3 hitting the under by an average of 8.2 points under the total. And Minnesota's 4-5 with 2 of the last 3 hitting the under and an average of minus 5.3 to the total. And that's including an 11-point over the total win over Northwestern. So keep that in mind. So neither team is really going to be that sound, in my opinion. I think they're really going to try to do body blows, especially because they're going to be fighting for the Big Ten West. I think it's going to be a defensive, hard-fought game. My last pick is Houston minus 24.5 versus Temple. big spread here in terms of talent. That's why you see a big spread. Houston's one of the better teams in the nation on paper, and Temple is probably the second worst or third worst behind UConn and UMass. Temple has lost the last 4 games by an average of 38 points to teams ranked much worse than Houston in the Power Index. And Houston has won the last 4 by an average of 11 points to much, much better teams than Temple. Matched up, Houston actually looks to play better than their season averages, due to the defense that Temple has. Temple allows more points, yards, and a better third down conversion percentage than Houston has averaged for the year. Houston is substantially better in the first half than Temple too, so it's going to probably get out of hand early, leading to a big point spread. And then they average 0.545 points per play, which is 8th in the nation, and then 5.8 yards per play, which is 44th in the nation as well, meaning it's going to be a lot of big chunk plays. And on defense, that's tough to keep up with. Looking at Michigan State last week, it's hard to catch back up when you're just getting beat up on these long chunk plays. So, all right, guys, that's this week's picks. As always, make sure you follow me on Twitter at @ChopTheChalk. I have more content that comes out just through that channel. Let me know what you think about these picks on my Twitter or on the comments below. And let's make some money. Let's recover from that bad week last week, and let's try to sweep the board this week. All right, guys, take care.